We expect predators to look monstrous, yet the most dangerous individuals hide among us, masking their guilt behind bizarre reactions and hollow displays of grief. They believe their performances are flawless, but what happens when a confident law student steps before the television cameras, completely unaware that detectives already see through his act? How well do you truly know the people standing beside you? It is June 30th, 2011 in the suffocating summer heat of Macon, Georgia. A local television news reporter stands outside a historic brick apartment complex, holding a microphone out to a shaggy-haired law student named Stephen McDaniel. McDaniel stores into the camera lens, playing the role of a concerned neighbor, pleading for the safe return of his missing classmate, Lauren Giddings. The interview proceeds without interruption until the reporter introduces a breaking development. She states that investigators just located a dismembered torso sealed inside the apartment complex trash bins. In a fraction of a second, McDaniel transforms. His body goes rigid, his eyes widen in a stare of unadulterated, primal panic as his brain processes the information. His breathing turns ragged, his chest heaving as he stammers a request to sit down. Captured on live television. This is the exact, chilling moment a predator realizes his hidden secret has been dragged into the daylight. To understand the magnitude of this fracture in reality, the timeline must rewind to the days preceding that infamous broadcast. Macon, Georgia, sits in the heart of the American South, characterized by dense humidity, sprawling oak trees draped in Spanish moss, and a slow, methodical pace of life. Mercer University anchors the local community, projecting an aura of academic prestige with its manicured lawns and stately brick architecture. Across the street from the University Law School stands a quiet, older residential building known to locals as a haven for dedicated students. The structure features wooden staircases, wrought iron railings, and wrap-around balconies that offer clear views of the campus grounds below. Peeling white paint and towering magnolia trees give the property a historic, lived-in atmosphere. The layout of the second floor consists of side-by-side units, forcing residents to share a narrow walkway and a common balcony space. Sound travels through the thin walls, making isolation impossible for anyone living there. The proximity to the university makes these units desirable for law students who spend long hours buried in textbooks. Streetlights cast long amber shadows across the parking lot at night, illuminating a space that feels safe and insulated from the outside world. This specific second-story corridor serves as the primary stage for a chilling psychological collision. The physical closeness of the doors creates a false sense of community, masking the absolute privacy of what occurs behind drawn blinds. Behind one of those second-story doors lives Lauren Giddings, a 27-year-old recent graduate with a commanding presence and an infectious warmth. Lauren hails from Maryland, bringing a sharp intellect and an unwavering ambition to the quiet southern town. She dedicates her existence to the pursuit of justice, preparing for the upcoming Georgia bar exam with dreams of launching a formidable legal career. Her daily routine requires extreme discipline, waking up before dawn brewing coffee and settling at her desk surrounded by towering stacks of legal outlines. Friends and professors recognize her as a natural leader, someone who commands attention in a courtroom simulation while offering genuine kindness in private conversations. She maintains a wide social circle, staying in constant contact with her family through daily phone calls and endless strings of text messages. Lauren represents the embodiment of potential, standing on the absolute precipice of a successful adult life. Her apartment reflects her organized mind, kept tidy and illuminated, serving as a sanctuary from the grueling demands of her academic schedule. She often leaves her door unlocked during the day while moving between her apartment and the campus library, demonstrating a profound trust in her environment. This open, trusting nature makes her a beloved figure within the tight-knit law school community. She views the world through a lens of optimism and fairness, unaware of the dark fixation festering just a few feet away. Her dedication to her studies leaves her little time for idle distractions, making her predictable in her daily movements. This steady rhythm of study sessions, library visits, and evening rest creates a stable baseline that makes any deviation obvious to those who care for her. Next door, sharing the same second-story balcony, resides 25-year-old Stephen McDaniel. McDaniel projects a different energy, moving through the campus like a shadow among his peers. He maintains a rigid, socially awkward demeanor, avoiding eye contact and often responding to casual greetings with unnatural silence. To the casual observer, he appears as an introverted academic who simply prefers the company of his own thoughts. His physical appearance, characterized by unkempt, shoulder-length hair and a stiff, robotic gait, isolates him from the lively social circles Lauren frequents. Fellow students view him as eccentric but harmless, an odd fixture of the law school ecosystem. He spends his days holed up in his apartment, pretending to be deep in study, though his true focus lies elsewhere. The architectural layout grants him a perfect vantage point over Lauren's daily movements, allowing him to memorize her schedule with chilling precision. He learns the exact time she leaves for the library, the specific sound her key makes in the deadbolt, and the exact moments she turns off her lights at night. McDaniel transforms the mundane realities of neighborly living into an obsessive campaign of silent surveillance. He utilizes his harmless reputation as a shield, ensuring that no one in their shared social circle ever questions his lingering presence near her door. The heavy wooden door separating their units provides no real barrier against his escalating psychological fixation. The established rhythm of this quiet community shatters on Saturday, June 25, 2011. Lauren spends the preceding Friday evening studying and communicating with her friends and family, leaving a digital trail of text messages that ceases late that night. When Saturday morning arrives, the sun climbs high over the Mercer University campus, baking the concrete parking lots in intense heat. Lauren fails to show up for her scheduled bar preparation class, a stark deviation for a student so dedicated to her legal future. Her closest friends send casual text messages, assuming she might have overslept or taken a rare morning off. Hours tick by without a single reply, causing a subtle ripple of anxiety to spread among her study group. As afternoon turns into evening, her phone goes straight to voicemail, indicating that the device is either powered down or dead. Family members in Maryland attempt to reach her only to be met with the same automated recording. The silence stretches over the entire weekend, creating an agonizing vacuum of information. Lauren never misses a check-in with her parents, nor does she ever abandon her academic responsibilities without prior notice. By Sunday evening, the absence of communication transitions from a minor curiosity to a full-blown crisis. Her peers begin mapping out her last known movements, realizing that no one has seen or heard from her in over 48 hours. The oppressive humidity of the Georgia summer feels heavier as dread settles over the tight-knit group of law students. They organize informal searches of the campus library and nearby coffee shops, finding zero trace of their missing friend. Driven by mounting panic, a group of her friends converges on the historic apartment complex late Sunday night to investigate her residence themselves. They ascend the creaking wooden staircase to the second floor, their footsteps echoing in the quiet courtyard. Standing before Lauren's door, they notice the immediate, unsettling stillness surrounding the unit. The exterior light remains off, and the windows are dark, offering no sign of movement from within. They knock forcefully on the heavy wood, calling out her name, but receive only silence in return. Next door, Stephen McDaniel sits inside his apartment, listening to the frantic efforts of Lauren's peers just inches away on the shared balcony. The friends test the doorknob, finding it locked tight. which amplifies their growing sense of alarm. They circle the building, attempting to peer through gaps in the window blinds, but they see nothing out of the ordinary. The lack of any visible struggle or disturbance inside the apartment creates a baffling paradox. If Lauren left on her own accord, she would have taken her phone and notified her family of her plans. The friends deliberate on the balcony, weighing the severity of the situation against the hope that a logical explanation still exists. Convinced that something terrible has interrupted her life, they make the decisive choice to involve law enforcement. They dial the Macon Police Department, elevating the situation from a worrying absence to a formal missing person investigation. The call sets in motion a sprawling procedural machine that will soon uncover the darkest corners of their academic community. Patrol cruisers from the Macon Police Department arrive at the apartment complex minutes after the distress call, their tires crunching over the gravel parking lot. Uniformed officers step out into the stifling night air, meeting the group of anxious law students gathered at the base of the stairs. The officers conduct a preliminary interview, documenting the exact timeline of the unanswered texts and the missed bar preparation class. Taking the lead, law enforcement personnel ascend to the second floor. Their heavy-duty boots thudding against the wooden steps, they position themselves outside Lauren's door, announcing their presence with authoritative knocks that echo across the entire complex. When the prolonged silence persists, the officers secure permission from the property manager to breach the residence for a standard welfare check. The deadbolt clicks open, and the officers cross the threshold into a space that feels wrong. The apartment remains immaculate, with law books stacked on the desk and personal items resting exactly where they belong. However, the complete absence of the tenant, combined with the heavy, stagnant air inside the unit, sets off immediate alarm bells for the seasoned officers. They sweep the bedroom, the bathroom, and the closets, finding zero evidence of forced entry or a physical altercation. A closer inspection reveals that essential personal items, including her keys and wallet, appear to be missing, yet her vehicle remains parked outside. The officers step back onto the balcony, exchanging grim looks as they realize this is not a simple case of a student taking an unannounced vacation. The physical evidence points to a chilling conclusion, marking the absolute point of no return for the investigation. The strange, sterile quiet of the apartment serves as the first concrete clue in a mystery that will soon command national attention. On the morning of Monday, June 27th, the Macon Police Department transforms the quiet street bordering the Mercer University campus into a localized command center. Uniformed officers tape off the perimeter of the historic apartment building, restricting access to the gravel parking lot and the wooden staircases. Detectives establish a staging area under the shade of the large magnolia trees, organizing a systematic grid search of the surrounding 4-block radius. Search and rescue personnel deploy trained canine units to sweep the campus lawns, the nearby ravines, and the dense brush lining the Ogmul River. Investigators fan out across the adjacent streets, knocking on doors and demanding answers from half-awake residents. The physical geography of the complex dictates their strategy, forcing officers to clear each neighboring unit one by one along the shared second-story balcony. During this methodical canvassing process, Stephen McDaniel steps out of his adjacent apartment and right into the path of the investigators. He offers his assistance without hesitation, projecting the image of a helpful and concerned neighbor. He details his own version of events, claiming he last saw Lauren on Saturday and thought nothing of her subsequent absence. Detectives take his preliminary statement, noting his proximity to the missing woman but lacking any physical reason to detain him. McDaniel seizes this opportunity to insert himself into the heart of the crisis, shadowing the search teams as they coordinate their routes. He volunteers to distribute missing person flyers across the university campus, holding stacks of printed photographs featuring Lauren smiling in her graduation gown. By embedding himself in the search efforts, he gains direct, unfiltered access to the exact strategies law enforcement intend to use. He monitors the radio chatter of the passing patrol cars and notes the specific locations the canine units clear. This calculated proximity allows him to anticipate the movements of the police, providing him with a profound, terrifying sense of control over the developing narrative. The search stretches into Tuesday, June 28th, with the stifling Georgia heat amplifying the urgency of the missing person campaign. Local news vans arrive at the edge of the police perimeter, raising their broadcast antennas and pointing heavy camera lenses toward the second-story balcony. Reporters stalk the sidewalks, seeking sound bites from law students and neighbors who knew the missing woman. McDaniel seeks out these television crews, walking up to the microphones positioned near the complex entrance. He stands before the glaring camera lights, attempting to mimic the emotional distress displayed by Lauren's actual friends. Detectives observing the media circus from the command post begin to notice deep, unsettling fractures in his public performance. While other students weep and speak with trembling voices, McDaniel maintains an unnatural, robotic posture during his televised interviews. His facial expressions remain flat, and his voice carries a monotone cadence that clashes with the terrifying reality of a missing classmate. He speaks of Lauren in the past tense, a subtle linguistic slip that catches the trained ears of the listening investigators. Furthermore, his eyes dart toward the police staging area, tracking the detectives rather than focusing on the reporter asking the questions. Experienced investigators recognize this hypervigilance as a classic counter-surveillance tactic utilized by perpetrators attempting to gauge the progress of an inquiry. The psychological challenge mounts for the investigative team as they realize the neighbor is not simply a strange academic, but a potential suspect studying their every move. They decide to run a deep background check on his university profile, looking for any hidden disciplinary flags or past altercations. Behind closed doors, detectives assign unmarked units to monitor his movements without triggering his suspicion. Inside the police station, investigators attempt to solve the fundamental mechanical puzzle of the empty apartment. Crime scene technicians spend Wednesday, June 29th, processing the second-story unit, dusting the heavy wooden door frame and the window sills for latent prints. They confirm the absolute absence of broken glass, splintered wood, or any other indicator of a forced physical breach. The deadbolt mechanism shows no signs of lock-picking tools or forced manipulation, leaving detectives with a distinct spatial impossibility. Someone accessed the secure unit, yet the structural integrity of the entrance remained intact. Detectives subpoena the property management records, combing through the lease agreements and the maintenance logs for the historic building. A glaring, infuriating administrative failure emerges from the paperwork, revealing a profound lapse in basic residential security. The complex management utilized a universal master key system, allowing a single physical key to unlock every door on the property. Through his role in a previous campus organization, McDaniel acquired one of these master keys and never returned it upon graduation. The property managers failed to audit their key inventory, allowing a tenant to retain unrestricted access to the homes of his neighbors. This systemic negligence provided a predator with an invisible, untraceable method of bypassing every deadbolt in the building. Detectives realized McDaniel possessed the ability to enter Lauren's apartment at will, destroying the illusion of safety provided by her locked door. This physical evidence bridges the gap between his constant proximity and the pristine condition of the crime scene. The investigation shifts its total focus onto the quiet neighbor, though police keep this revelation contained to prevent him from fleeing. Just as detectives center their sights on the second-story neighbor, a sudden external variable threatens to derail the precise momentum of the inquiry. On Thursday morning, a separate division of the Macon Police Department responds to a residential burglary less than 3 miles from the Mercer University campus. The patrol officers arrest a local man caught breaking into a ground-floor apartment, finding a cache of stolen electronics and jewelry in his vehicle. Word of the arrest leaks to the local press, igniting a massive wave of public speculation that a serial burglar is targeting female students in the area. Citizen sleuths and panicked community members flood the tip lines, demanding that investigators connect the captured thief to the missing law student. The police department brass faces immense public pressure to pursue this convenient narrative, as blaming a random intruder absolves the tight-knit university community of harboring a threat. Detectives assigned to the case lose critical hours interviewing the burglar in a sterile interrogation room, mapping his whereabouts over the preceding weekend. They cross-reference his cell phone tower pings with the geographic coordinates of the historic apartment complex. The data proves the burglar was nowhere near the university on the night communication ceased, ruling him out as a suspect. However, the media continues to broadcast the burglary theory, creating a thick smokescreen of misinformation across the city. McDaniel watches these specific news reports from his living room, relaxing his posture as the public directs their outrage toward a phantom intruder. He believes his calculated deception is working, assuming the police are too incompetent to see through his academic facade. This false sense of absolute security prompts him to remain inside his apartment, right where the seasoned detectives want him, recognizing the need for concrete, irrefutable evidence before making an arrest. Investigators pivot toward the invisible digital landscape. Late Thursday afternoon, a judge signs a covert search warrant, granting law enforcement authorization to seize the electronic devices from the adjacent apartment. Detectives wait for McDaniel to leave his unit for a supposed study session before executing the warrant with calculated precision. A specialized evidence recovery team breaches the neighbor's door, moving through the cluttered, unkempt space with digital collection kits. They locate a heavy desktop computer tower resting on a desk, a digital camera, and several external hard drives scattered across the floor. Technicians disconnect the power sources, sealing the hardware inside anti-static evidence bags and transporting them direct to the cybercrimes laboratory downtown. Digital forensic examiners begin the painstaking process of cloning the hard drives, ensuring the original data remains uncontaminated for trial. They utilize specialized software to bypass the login passwords, stripping away the digital armor, protecting the user's search history. The extraction process takes several hours, requiring the software to rebuild thousands of fragmented data blocks scattered across the storage disks. The investigators sit in the darkened laboratory, staring at monitors as lines of code translate into a chronological timeline of user activity. They sift through months of mundane academic research, filtering out legal cases and university portal logins. The challenge lies in isolating the exact timestamps that correlate with the weekend of the disappearance. As the progress bar on the recovery software reaches completion, the true scope of the psychological horror hidden behind the neighboring door begins to render on the screen. The recovered data shatters the final remnants of the harmless student persona, exposing an obsessive, predatory campaign of silent terror. Forensic analysts uncover a vast organized folder containing thousands of internet searches related to the victim. McDaniel used his computer to track her public social media profiles, read her online interactions, and map the exact geographic locations she visited. The timestamps on the searches prove he monitored her digital life for months, escalating his fixation while living just inches on the other side of the shared wall. The most chilling revelation emerges from a series of recovered, deleted video files salvaged from the memory card of his digital camera. Analysts click on the recovered thumbnails, watching in stunned silence as the shaky footage plays across the laboratory monitors. The videos show the interior of Lauren's apartment, captured in the dead of night while she remained unaware of the intrusion. McDaniel constructed a surveillance tool by attaching his digital camera to the end of a long, rigid stick. He stood on the shared balcony, extending the pole out over the railing and positioning the lens outside her second-story window. The footage documents him filming her through the gaps in her closed blinds, violating her sanctuary while she slept, studied, and lived her daily life. He possessed the master key to bypass her lock, and he possessed the footage proving he stalked her every intimate moment. The investigators realize he was never a passive observer, but an active predator, hiding in plain sight, waiting for the precise moment to strike. This undeniable, verified digital proof arms the detectives with the exact leverage they need to dismantle his arrogant facade. The turning point of the massive investigation centers on a mundane physical location just steps from the crime scene. At the far edge of the historic apartment complex parking lot sits a row of heavy green municipal trash bins. A tall wooden privacy fence conceals these containers from the main street, shielding them from the view of passing university traffic. On the morning of Thursday, June 30th, detectives coordinate with the local sanitation department to halt all refuse collection in the immediate area. A fateful delay in the normal pickup schedule provides law enforcement with a narrow critical window of opportunity. Investigators wearing heavy protective gloves approach the designated waste containers positioned near the second-story staircase. They notice one specific bin secured with a sturdy metal padlock, an anomaly that draws their focused attention. Bolt cutters sever the heavy steel lock, allowing technicians to lift the plastic lid and peer into the sweltering dark interior. Beneath layers of ordinary household refuse, authorities locate several plastic bags emitting a profound, unmistakable odor. Inside these sealed bags, investigators make a grim, definitive discovery confirming that Lauren Giddings met a brutal, permanent end. The search for a missing law student transforms into a sprawling criminal inquiry aimed at securing justice for a stolen life. Uniformed officers deploy layers of yellow crime scene tape around the perimeter, locking down the entire block. The physical reality of the recovered remains shatters any lingering hope held by the tight-knit academic community. The predator disposed of his victim with calculated precision. Yet a simple sanitation delay unravels his entire effort to erase her existence. While crime scene technicians process the grim findings at the edge of the parking lot, Stephen McDaniel continues his calculated media tour on the adjacent sidewalk. Unaware of the police breakthrough unfolding just yards away, he stands before a local television camera, projecting his rehearsed image of a concerned neighbor. The news reporter receives an urgent audio update through her earpiece, prompting her to shift the focus of the live interview. She stares at McDaniel and states that authorities just located human remains sealed inside the apartment complex trash bins. In a fraction of a second, the arrogant facade of the brilliant law student shatters on live television. McDaniel freezes in place, his shoulders stiffening as his eyes wind in sheer, unadulterated panic. His breath hitches in his throat, and he begins to hyperventilate as the terrifying reality of his exposure registers in his mind. He mutters a frantic request to sit down, collapsing under the weight of his failing deception. This precise moment captures a predator realizing his hidden atrocities have been dragged into the harsh daylight. Plainclothes detectives observing the interview close the distance, surrounding the trembling man before he can attempt an escape. Officers detain McDaniel on the spot, reading him his rights and guiding him into the back of a waiting patrol cruiser. The heavy metal door slams shut, ending his reign of silent terror over the historic apartment complex. The vehicle speeds away from the university campus, transporting the primary suspect toward a confrontation he can no longer avoid. The subsequent interrogation takes place inside a small, windowless room deep within the downtown Macon police precinct. Cold cinder block walls, a heavy steel table, and humming fluorescent lights create a sterile environment designed to break psychological defenses. Detectives leave McDaniel alone in the room for an extended period, allowing the silence and isolation to erode his remaining confidence. When seasoned investigators cross the threshold, McDaniel adopts a rigid, catatonic posture, staring blankly at the wall and refusing to make eye contact. He attempts to utilize his legal training, offering silence or single-word answers in a desperate bid to maintain his intellectual superiority. The lead detectives refuse to play his game, placing physical case files on the metal table one by one. They detail his possession of the complex master key, destroying his claim that the locked door provided Lauren with total security. The fatal blow arrives when investigators present high-resolution photographs printed from his own deleted digital camera files. They slide the images across the table, forcing him to look at the exact moments he filmed Lauren through her window using his makeshift camera stick. The undeniable proof of his predatory surveillance strips away his final defense, leaving him with absolutely no room for denial. His body language crumbles as he realizes the digital experts outsmarted him, extracting the very secrets he believed he erased. The intense hours-long confrontation proves that his perceived brilliance was nothing more than an arrogant illusion. The meticulous police work traps the predator in a web of his own digital creation. Armed with an insurmountable mountain of physical and digital evidence, the district attorney indicts Stephen McDaniel for the crimes that ended the life of Lauren Giddings. Authorities transfer him to the county detention center, stripping him of his street clothes and replacing them with a standard prison uniform. The Mercer University community reels from the official confirmation that a monster lived in their midst, hiding behind the mask of a quiet academic. Lauren possessed a radiant future, boundless ambition, and a deep commitment to justice, all of which a jealous, fixated neighbor stole in the dark. Her family travels to Georgia, facing the agonizing task of packing up her pristine apartment while mourning the profound loss of their daughter. McDaniel languishes in a concrete cell, spending years in pre-trial confinement as his defense attorneys scramble for a legal loophole. The prosecution builds an impenetrable case, linking the recovered digital footage, the master key logs, and the forensic timeline into a cohesive narrative of premeditated terror. Pre-trial hearings reveal the staggering depth of his obsession, showcasing the sheer incompetence of a predator who documented his own crimes. McDaniel watches his entire legal future evaporate, knowing that a jury of his peers will see through his hollow, emotionless charade. The comprehensive digital forensics ensure that his arrogant belief in his own superiority serves as the primary instrument of his downfall. The justice system moves forward without hesitation, refusing to offer the former law student any leniency or opportunity for escape. The definitive conclusion to this harrowing chapter arrives in April 2014, nearly 3 years after the initial disappearance. Facing the absolute certainty of the death penalty at trial, McDaniel abandons his protracted legal fight and pleads guilty. He stands before a superior court judge, offering no genuine remorse as he accepts responsibility in exchange for his life. The presiding judge sentences him to life in prison, ensuring that the heavy steel doors of the state penitentiary will remain locked, keeping him permanently separated from society. This final verdict delivers a measure of moral justice for Lauren, validating the relentless dedication of the detectives who refused to let her case go cold. The meticulous investigation proves that even the most calculated perpetrators can outrun the quiet persistence of science and the truth. Lauren Giddings remains remembered by her peers as a brilliant, compassionate force for good, outshining the dark legacy of the man who took her away. The historic apartment complex still stands near the campus, serving as a chilling reminder that the greatest threats often live right next door. While this case concludes with a predator securely behind bars, The deceptive nature of the human mask continues to present itself in other perfect communities. In a different town, another horrific betrayal brews behind the polished exterior of a grieving family. A brave widow sits on a television set, promoting a children's book about healing while investigators trace her hidden purchases of illicit fentanyl. A grieving mother of 3 sits under the bright studio lights of a local television set, promoting an illustrated children's book she wrote about processing the sudden loss of a father. She speaks with polished eloquence about resilience, healing, and guiding her young sons through profound grief. The television audience sees only a brave widow turning her heartbreak into hope. Beneath this inspirational public facade, detectives are already pulling away the layers of a dark deception. Investigators sit in windowless rooms, tracing a hidden digital trail of illicit fentanyl purchases and sinister internet searches. The viewers watching the morning broadcast remain unaware they are looking into the eyes of the primary suspect in a complex domestic tragedy. The town of Kamas, Utah, sits in a high valley just east of the sprawling Park City limits. Pine trees blanket the rugged slopes of the Watch Mountains surrounding the affluent, tight-knit community. Residents know this area for its sprawling ranch homes, snowy winters, and a profound sense of local loyalty. 39-year-old Eric Richin stands out as a pillar within this peaceful mountain enclave. He runs a successful masonry business, building the vast stone fireplaces and retaining walls that define the luxury properties in the region. Work consumes a significant portion of his daylight hours, yet he dedicates his true energy to his family. Eric coaches local youth sports teams, mentors young men in his community, and remains fiercely loyal to his 3 young sons. Extended family members describe him as a grounding presence, a man who consistently places the needs of others before his own comfort. He and his wife, Corey, project an image of a charmed, wealthy lifestyle. Neighbors often see the couple packing their luxury vehicles for family vacations or hosting elegant social gatherings on their expansive property. Their sprawling home projects a facade of ultimate success and stability to the outside world. Behind the solid oak doors and perfectly manicured exterior, a profound decay takes root in the marriage. Severe financial tensions escalate in the shadows of the Richins' home. Corey manages an independent real estate venture, purchasing and attempting to flip expensive properties throughout the region. These investments place a massive unseen strain on the family finances, generating debts that remain hidden from public view. Eric uncovers severe discrepancies in their bank accounts and discovers deep financial liabilities tied directly to his name. The arguments between the couple grow cold, calculated, and frequent as the financial reality comes to light. A suffocating atmosphere settles over the household, transforming their spacious residence into a tense, unpredictable environment. Eric begins making hushed phone calls to his sisters and closest friends, sharing details that strip away the illusion of his perfect life. He expresses a profound, unwavering fear that his wife might be actively trying to end his life. He recounts strange illnesses following meals and voices a quiet dread about the food and drinks prepared in his own kitchen. The wealthy businessman starts avoiding certain meals and seeks out legal counsel to protect his assets and his children. An underlying dread dictates his daily routine as he navigates the final, turbulent months of his failing marriage. He attempts to maintain a sense of normalcy for his 3 young sons, keeping his darkest fears confined to private conversations. Despite his mounting terror, Eric remains in the home, determined to shield his boys from the collapsing structure of their family. The biting chill of late winter grips Kamas on the night of March 3rd, 2022. The Richins' residence sits in absolute darkness, save for the faint glow of exterior security lights illuminating the frosted driveway. Inside the sprawling home, the quiet of the night breaks with a frantic call to the emergency 911 dispatch center. Corey Richins remains on the line, her voice projecting a tone of pure, panicked desperation. She tells the operator that she just walked into her master bedroom and found her husband unresponsive. According to her account, she reaches out to Eric and finds his skin freezing cold, prompting her desperate plea for medical intervention. She explains the timeline of the evening to the dispatcher, crafting a specific narrative of a quiet celebration at home. Corey claims she prepared a celebratory Moscow mule for Eric earlier in the evening to commemorate a recent business success. She details handing him the mixed drink in their kitchen before leaving him alone to finish it. Her story places her in a different wing of the large house for the remainder of the night. She insists she slept in the bedroom of one of their children because the child was experiencing night terrors. The narrative establishes her physical distance from her husband during his final unknown hours. Sirens shatter the mountain's silence as police cruisers and an ambulance race down the snowy streets of the neighborhood. First responders pull into the circular driveway and rush through the front doors of the opulent home. Paramedics navigate the grand foyer and move down the long hallway toward the master suite on the main floor. They locate Eric lying motionless on the floor next to the edge of the large bed. Medical personnel initiate life-saving protocols, performing chest compressions in a desperate attempt to restore his heartbeat. The efforts prove futile as all physical indicators show he has been deceased for a significant period before their arrival. First responders officially pronounce the 39-year-old father dead right there in his own bedroom. Uniformed patrol officers secure the perimeter of the room, taking preliminary notes on the arrangement of the furniture and the condition of the body. They observe no overt signs of a physical struggle, no overturned lamps, and no obvious indicators of a violent intrusion. Investigators arrive on the scene and speak with a devastated Corey, noting her cooperative demeanor and consistent timeline. The local authorities process the master bedroom without the rigid scrutiny reserved for a major criminal investigation, based on the lack of visible trauma and the composed narrative provided by the wife. The police treat the location as the site of a tragic sudden medical event. The coroner transports Eric from his home, leaving the grieving widow alone with her 3 sons as the sun begins to rise over the Watch Mountains. The sterile, fluorescent-lit corridors of the Utah State Medical Examiner facility stand in sharp contrast to the warm, wood-paneled interior of the Richins' home. Technicians in specialized protective gear process the post-mortem samples gathered from Eric during his initial examination. The specialized gas chromatography machines require extensive time to break down the specific chemical composition of his blood. Detectives wait for these standard results while operating under the assumption of a tragic medical anomaly. The official toxicology report arrives on a detective's desk in the Camas precinct, altering the trajectory of the entire case. The documentation reveals Eric possessed 5 times the lethal dose of illicit fentanyl in his system at the time of his passing. Fentanyl acts as a synthetic central nervous system depressant, shutting down respiratory functions with terrifying speed. The sheer volume of the substance rules out any possibility of environmental exposure or a standard medical mistake. Investigators pull the original incident reports from the night of March 3rd to re-examining Corey's specific statements. They circle the detail regarding the celebratory Moscow mule she prepared and served to her husband just hours before his demise. The local police department transitions the classification of the file from a sudden medical event to a deliberate domestic attack. A covert slow burn inquiry commences as detectives realize the grieving widow controls the central narrative of the tragedy. Investigators turn their attention away from the physical residence and direct their focus toward the complex financial architecture of the Richins family. Forensic accountants set up a secure digital workspace inside the precinct, requesting years of bank statements, tax returns, and corporate filings. They trace a labyrinth of hidden debts and unauthorized credit lines attached to Corey's independent real estate flipping business. The paper trail exposes massive financial liabilities threatening to collapse her elaborate public image of wealth. Detectives discover specific date-stamped documents showing Corey attempting to manipulate Eric's life insurance policies without his knowledge. She contacted the insurance providers just months prior to his passing, demanding the removal of his business partner as the primary beneficiary. The records show she attempted to insert her own name as the sole recipient of a multi-million-dollar payout. The insurance company flagged this suspicious request and notified Eric, prompting him to restore the original beneficiary designations. He also established a new blind trust designed to protect his assets and ensure his 3 young sons received his wealth. Eric excluded Corey from accessing this protective financial structure, securing his estate against her mounting real estate debts. The financial timeline provides investigators with a crystalline, undeniable motive rooted in impending bankruptcy and absolute greed. Detectives document how Corey stood to gain nothing from his passing under the revised trust, a crucial fact hidden from her during the fateful night in March. The investigation expands as detectives conduct lengthy private interviews with Eric's surviving sisters and his closest business associates. These witnesses sit in quiet interview rooms, recounting a chilling incident from the middle of February in the year 2022. On the afternoon of Valentine's Day, Eric sat in the driver's seat of his work truck during a break. Corey had prepared a customized sandwich and left it for him to consume during his busy workday. Minutes after taking a few bites of the meal, Eric experienced a sudden severe physical reaction. He broke into a heavy sweat, lost his basic motor coordination, and broke out in widespread hives across his skin. He managed to reach for his phone and dial his business partner, while struggling to breathe and articulate his words. He injected himself with his son's emergency allergy medication, stabilizing his plunging respiratory rate. Eric told his family members that he believed his wife had intentional plans to poison his food to end his life. Investigators matched this historical testimony with the new toxicological evidence, recognizing the Valentine's Day incident as an unsuccessful precursor. The failed attempt highlights a terrifying escalation in tactics, proving the predator refined her methods between February and March. The detectives log this testimony as critical evidence to establish a clear pattern of premeditation leading up to the fatal dose in the Moscow Mule. Cybercrime specialists begin pulling cellular tower data to map the physical movements of Corey's devices during the early months of the year 2022. The geographic coordinates place her phone at multiple unusual locations miles away from her standard daily routine in Kamas. Detectives cross-reference her call logs and text message metadata to identify repeated contact with an individual possessing an extensive criminal record. This specific contact operates as a known distributor of illicit narcotics within the greater Salt Lake City region. The legal loopholes regulating prepaid burner phones and encrypted messaging applications allowed the suspect to bypass standard communication surveillance for months. Law enforcement agents needed to serve multiple subpoenas across disjointed telecom jurisdictions just to connect her physical phone to the anonymous numbers. Once past these procedural hurdles, agents secure warrants to access the encrypted communications between the two devices. The messages reveal Corey requesting prescription pain medication for a purported back injury before escalating her demands. She asks the distributor for stronger substances, demanding the kind of illicit pills favored by heavy narcotic users. The electronic timeline shows a confirmed hand-to-hand transaction occurring just days before the Valentine's Day sandwich incident. Following Eric's survival of that initial attempt, the cellular logs document Corey demanding a new batch of the strongest substance available. The digital footprint provides a concrete, step-by-step record of the primary suspect procuring the exact chemical weapon used against her husband. Detectives log each text message and cell tower ping to create an inescapable web of technological proof. While detectives assemble this mountain of incriminating evidence, Khoury embarks on a bizarre media campaign. She writes and publishes an illustrated children's book titled, Are You With Me?, supposedly designed to help young minds process the sudden loss of a parent. She dedicates the manuscript to Eric, transforming his tragic demise into a marketable commodity for her personal brand. Local news stations invite the grieving widow into their television studios to promote the publication. She sits under the bright broadcast lights wearing a soft smile and speaking with polish about the enduring power of family resilience. She instructs parents on methods to guide their children through overwhelming trauma, projecting an aura of maternal warmth and deep psychological insight. The investigators watch these television broadcasts from the confines of their precinct, horrified by the absolute cognitive dissonance on display. They observe a woman profiting from the emotional devastation she engineered, using her 3 fatherless sons as props to sell copies of her book. Her public persona generates immense sympathy throughout the state, shielding her from community suspicion. The psychological depth of her deception forces the detectives to maintain absolute secrecy regarding their findings. Any premature leak of the investigation would allow the suspect to destroy evidence or flee the jurisdiction. The police continue their slow, methodical work in the shadows while the author basks in the television spotlight. The investigation pushes deeper into the digital realm as forensic experts execute search warrants on the suspect's personal computers and tablets. Technicians extract the internal hard drives and utilize specialized software to recover buried and deleted files. The screen displays a chilling history of internet queries entered in the weeks preceding and following the fatal night in March. Khoury searched specific questions regarding the time required for a life insurance company to distribute a death benefit. She also queried whether law enforcement could force a spouse to take a polygraph test during an active criminal inquiry. The most unsettling deleted searches involve inquiries about the living conditions inside luxury state prisons and whether rich people serve actual time. The detectives share these findings with the district attorney's office to anticipate the inevitable legal battles ahead. The legal team prepares for a specific defense theory suggesting Eric, stressed by his failing marriage, consumed the illicit substances by his own choice. To neutralize this inevitable defense, the investigators document Eric's pristine medical history and complete lack of previous substance abuse. They cite his massive financial success, his devotion to his sons, and his proactive efforts to secure his estate as absolute proof of his desire to live. The sheer toxicity of the fentanyl dose further dismantles any theory of accidental self-administration due to his zero tolerance for the narcotic. Every recovered digital search and medical record closes the loopholes a defense attorney might exploit in a future courtroom. The investigative team spends the entirety of the spring and summer of the year 2022 collating thousands of pages of raw data into a massive master file. The prosecutors arrange these discrete pieces of financial records, cellular tower pings and toxicological data into a singular, devastating chronological matrix. The timeline connects the crushing real estate debt to the hidden attempts to manipulate the life insurance beneficiaries. It bridges the financial desperation to the covert meetings with the Salt Lake City narcotics distributor. The matrix links the acquisition of the illicit pills to the failed Valentine's Day poisoning and the ultimate fatal dose concealed within the Moscow Mule. The deleted internet searches serve as the final layer of proof, showcasing the suspect's awareness of guilt and her attempts to evade justice. Detectives review the exhaustive dossier in the district attorney's office to ensure absolute factual precision across every single document. They confirm that no procedural errors or jurisdictional conflicts exist to jeopardize the impending legal action. A rigid legal protocol requires the prosecution to verify the chain of custody for every digital file before presenting the case to a magistrate. A judge reviews the towering stack of verified evidence and signs the official arrest warrants. The local police department coordinates a discreet tactical plan to apprehend the suspect without alerting the local media. The trap snaps shut, setting the stage to shatter the illusion of the grieving widow and expose the horrific reality of the crime. The morning of May 8, 2023, breaks with bright sunlight over the Watch Mountains. Spring sunlight illuminates the sprawling lawns of the Camas neighborhood. The Richens residence stands silent at the end of a long circular driveway. Unmarked police vehicles roll down the paved street and cut their engines outside the property line. Detectives step onto the asphalt wearing tactical vests over their civilian clothes. They march up the concrete walkway toward the massive oak front doors. A heavy metallic knock shatters the morning stillness. The door swings open to reveal Corey Richen standing in the grand foyer. The polished author expects another standard community interaction. She faces the rigid posture of law enforcement officers bearing official arrest warrants. The detectives state the extensive list of charges with clinical precision. Metal handcuffs click shut around her wrists. The steel rings send a sharp echo against the high ceilings of the opulent entryway. The officers escort her out of the house and secure her in the back of an awaiting cruiser. The heavy doors lock shut. This physical apprehension severs her connection to the luxury lifestyle she fought to maintain. The scene shifts to the sterile confines of the Summit County Jail. Investigators bring the suspect into a windowless concrete interrogation room. They drop the massive master file onto the metal table. The heavy impact echoes through the small space. Detectives arrange the chronological timeline across the table. They present the recovered internet searches detailing life insurance payouts and luxury prison conditions. They reveal the encrypted text messages used to secure the illicit fentanyl from the Salt Lake City distributor. They display the financial records proving her desperate attempts to alter the multi-million-dollar policies. The insurmountable mountain of evidence suffocates her previous narrative. Corey attempts to deploy her practiced television persona. The facade shatters against the rigid factual documentation. The officers dismantle her fabricated timeline from the night of the fatal event. They highlight her calculated physical distance from Eric as the synthetic depressant shut down his respiratory system. The realization strikes the local community as the arrest records go public. The residents of Camas read the exhaustive charging documents in profound horror. The predator hid behind a mask of maternal concern, exposing the celebrated widow as the architect of her own family's destruction. The state prosecutors charge Corey Richens with severe aggravated acts, resulting in the end of Eric's life. The district attorney adds multiple counts of financial forgery and calculated fraud to the charging documents. The legal proceedings consume the local court system for years as defense attorneys attempt to suppress the overwhelming digital evidence. They file endless motions to challenge the cellular tower data and the admissibility of the recovered internet searches. The judge denies these procedural maneuvers, recognizing the flawless chain of custody maintained by the investigative team. The trial commences in the spring, packing the historic courtroom with national media and devastated family members. The prosecution presents the comprehensive timeline, matching the toxicological data to the precise timestamps of the deleted queries. Expert witnesses take the stand to explain the lethal speed of synthetic depressants upon the human respiratory system. Forensic accountants map out the crushing real estate debt and the forged insurance documents for the jury. In March 2026, the jury foreman stands in the silent courtroom to deliver the final verdict. The 12 jurors find the defendant guilty on all counts, rejecting every alternative theory of accidental consumption. On May 13, 2026, Corey stands before the judge for final sentencing. The magistrate issues a term of life in prison without the possibility of parole. Heavy metal chains secure her wrists and ankles as bailiffs escort her out of the courtroom. The gavel strike ensures she cannot manipulate the public or profit from her devastating crimes. Eric Richins leaves a profound legacy of community service and steadfast devotion to his 3 young sons. His surviving family members assume custody of the boys, wrapping them in a genuine support system removed from the previous deception. The protective financial trust established by Eric before his passing functions as intended. The vast estate bypasses the convicted predator, securing the future for the children he fought to protect. The sprawling stone houses he built across the White Mountains remain as permanent monuments to his hard work and local dedication. The town of Camas heals from the psychological scars left by the high-profile trial. The case forces the public to confront a terrifying reality about the people hiding behind closed doors. Greed and financial desperation can transform a polished suburban parent into a calculating threat. A public image of absolute perfection conceals the darkest human intentions. The community learns to question the authentic nature of televised grief and public displays of mourning. The most unsettling clues surface when a grieving parent behaves in a manner detached from the reality of their loss. Beyond the mountains of Utah, another devastated community faces a similar chilling disconnect. Days after a horrific home invasion claimed her 2 young boys, a different mother stands at their fresh gravesite, smiling for the cameras and spraying party string over the soil. Just days after a devastating nighttime attack stole the futures of 2 young boys, local news cameras capture their mother standing over their fresh graves. She is chewing gum, laughing brightly, and playfully spraying aerosol celebration string across the disturbed earth to mark a posthumous birthday. The footage airs across the country, creating an immediate visceral shockwave of public disgust and confusion. Law enforcement officers already noting strange physical inconsistencies inside the family residence. Watch this bizarrely lighthearted television broadcast and feel an overwhelming sense of dread. The stark contrast between a supposedly grieving mother and this chillingly joyful display turns a tragic local mystery into a massive, heavily scrutinized investigation. In the early months of 1996, the affluent suburb of Rolette, Texas, projected a flawless image of the American dream. Situated just northeast of Dallas, this quiet community rested along the shores of Lake Ray Hubbard, acting as a serene sanctuary away from the noise of the sprawling metropolises. Tall oak trees lined the immaculate curving streets, shading large brick-front estates with perfectly manicured lawns. At the heart of this prosperous neighborhood sat a massive 2-story home on Eagle Drive, occupied by Darren and Darlie Routuier. The physical layout of the property communicated wealth and success, featuring a grand entryway, expansive living quarters, and a custom backyard swimming pool complete with a heated spa. 26-year-old Darlie maintained the residence with an obsessive level of meticulous care, filling the rooms with expensive decorations, plush carpets, and pristine furnishings. From the outside looking in, neighbors saw a radiant, beautiful stay-at-home mother who dedicated her entire existence to her family. She spent her days organizing playdates, attending local social events, and managing the busy schedules of her 3 young sons. Devon, her oldest at 6 years of age, loved riding his bicycle up and down the quiet cul-de-sac while the warm Texas sun baked the pavement. 5-year-old Damon shadowed his older brother everywhere, his small feet echoing across the hardwood floors of the house as they chased each other through the spacious hallways. The youngest boy, an infant named Drake, rested securely upstairs in his quiet nursery to the outside world. The Reuter family possessed a flawless, unbreakable foundation. However, beneath the polished veneer of custom landscaping and high-end vehicles, the household's structural integrity was fracturing under immense, invisible pressure. Darren operated a small business testing computer circuit boards, an enterprise that initially provided a steady flow of high income during the early tech boom. As the months passed in 1996, a sudden industry downturn severely choked their primary revenue stream. The couple carried a crushing mountain of financial debt, juggling massive mortgage payments, multiple credit card balances, and the upkeep of their luxurious lifestyle. Darlie refused to compromise her glamorous image, continuing to spend lavishly on designer clothing, expensive salon treatments, and elaborate parties. This sharp divide between their shrinking bank accounts and their outward projection of wealth created a thick, suffocating tension inside the home. Arguments over money echoed through the tall ceilings of the house, bouncing off the expensive decor and filling the quiet evenings with dread. Despite the escalating marital stress, the three boys remained the bright, innocent focal points of the household. Devon possessed a gentle, protective nature, often helping his mother retrieve toys from the downstairs playroom or watching television on the plush living room carpet. Damon matched his brother in energy, known for his bright smile and his absolute fascination with the family pets. These children trusted their parents implicitly, assuming their large suburban fortress shielded them from any conceivable harm. They knew nothing of the unpaid bills, the mounting bank notices, or the quiet desperation growing darker with each passing sunset. The boys simply looked forward to the impending summer vacation, eager to spend their afternoons splashing in the backyard pool. The architecture of the home separated the family during the evening of June 5th, 1996. Diane slept upstairs in the master bedroom, sharing the space with their infant son Drake. Downstairs, the vast family room stretched out adjacent to the open-concept kitchen, connected by a long hallway leading toward the attached garage. Darlie chose to sleep on the ground floor that night, setting up a makeshift bed on the carpet with Devon and Damon to watch television. The heavy wooden front door remained locked, and the large windows facing the quiet street offered no sign of external movement. At 20:27 in the morning on June 6th, the absolute silence of the emergency dispatch center shattered. A frantic, high-pitched voice flooded the operator headset, screaming that an unknown assailant had bypassed the home security measures. Darlie claimed an intruder walked right into the family room and unleashed a devastating attack in the dark. She yelled into the telephone receiver that someone had severely injured her and her two oldest children while they rested on the floor. The dispatcher struggled to extract clear information over the piercing sounds of sheer panic echoing through the receiver. Darlie provided fragmented descriptions, insisting a man dressed in dark clothing fled through the kitchen, dropping a weapon on the utility room floor before exiting through the garage. Sirens wailed into the humid night air, cutting through the peaceful suburban darkness as patrol vehicles raced toward Eagle Drive. First responders arrived within 3 minutes, sprinting up the driveway and forcing their way through the front entrance of the property. The spatial reality of the living room presented a chaotic, deeply traumatic scene that immediately overwhelmed the veteran officers. Furniture sat askew, pillows lay scattered across the floor, and a heavy metallic scent hung in the stagnant air of the family room. Emergency medical technicians found 6-year-old Devon and 5-year-old Damon suffering from catastrophic, life-ending injuries inflicted by a sharp instrument. The young boys never stood a chance against the sudden, overwhelming violence that found them in their sleep. Nearby, Darlie paced the length of the kitchen, pressing a light-colored towel against a severe gaping laceration running across her own throat. Additional deep cuts marked her right arm, and she continued to shout frantic details about the phantom intruder escaping into the alleyway. Darren rushed down the carpeted staircase, frantic and confused, desperately trying to perform life-saving measures on his fading children. Paramedics worked furiously over the small bodies, utilizing every piece of emergency equipment available in their medical kits. Despite their relentless, heroic efforts, the physical damage proved too extensive, and the two brothers took their final breaths on the living room floor. Officers immediately secured the perimeter, stringing bright yellow tape across the manicured lawn while calling for a massive influx of investigative personnel. They transported Darley to a nearby hospital for emergency surgery, leaving detectives behind to process the shattered remnants of the perfect American family. As the sun rose over Eagle Drive on the morning of June 6, 1996, the Rowlett Police Department launched a massive tactical response. Patrol officers locked down the entire neighborhood, establishing a rigid perimeter that stretched outward into the adjacent winding streets and wooded drainage areas. Dispatchers broadcast an urgent bulletin across regional law enforcement channels hunting for a male suspect wearing dark clothing and a baseball cap. Canine units arrived at the property, aggressively sniffing the dew-covered grass along the backyard fence line in search of a fleeing scent. The spatial layout of the suburban subdivision featured tight property lines, meaning any escaping assailant would have needed to sprint directly past neighboring windows or scale multiple wooden barriers. Detectives systematically canvassed the surrounding brick homes, knocking on doors and interviewing startled residents who had slept right through the chaos. Law enforcement personnel cataloged every parked vehicle, inspected every shadow, and scoured the narrow concrete alleyway running directly behind the Rudier residence. Despite the swift and overwhelming police presence, the physical environment offered absolutely nothing to support the existence of a fleeing fugitive. The search dogs spun in confused circles near the rear gate, failing to lock onto any directional track leading away from the property. Investigators noted the complete absence of disturbed earth in the flower beds, while the tall wooden fences showed no signs of recent vaulting or climbing. The initial working theory of a random violent home invasion began to crack under the weight of the missing physical footprint. Detectives realized they were hunting a ghost, a realization that forced them to turn their intense focus back toward the interior of the shattered home. Inside the residence, crime scene technicians began the grueling, methodical process of documenting the nightmare. The structural flow of the house directed the investigation from the devastated living room through the tiled kitchen and into the narrow utility corridor connecting to the garage. Darley insisted the attacker drop the weapon in this exact utility room before vanishing into the humid Texas night. Investigators located a large kitchen knife resting on the linoleum floor positioned exactly where the surviving mother claimed it fell. However, the physical reality of the floor surface presented a glaring, insurmountable problem for the intruder theory. The tragic events in the family room generated a massive amount of crimson trace evidence, coating the carpets and surrounding furniture. If a violent assailant committed those acts and immediately sprinted through the kitchen, his footwear would have inevitably transferred dark red footprints across the pristine white tiles. Technicians crawled along the floor with magnifying equipment and specialized forensic lighting, finding absolutely no trace of a chaotic escape. The tile remained completely devoid of any tracking marks, muddy shoe prints, or fluid transfer leading toward the garage exit. A meticulous examination of the heavy interior garage door revealed clean hardware, lacking any smeared fingerprints or chaotic smudges on the doorknob. The physical evidence severely isolated the tragic events to the family room, entirely failing to corroborate the frantic story broadcast over the emergency dispatch call. Experienced detectives stood in the center of the kitchen, staring down at a crime scene that felt entirely too contained. The forensic focus then shifted heavily toward the attached garage, the specific location designated as the primary point of entry and exit. The large darkened space contained the family vehicle's assorted storage boxes and a single window facing the rear of the property. A fiberglass mesh screen covered this window, displaying a long, jagged vertical slice that initially seemed to validate the story of a forced break-in. Technicians approached the glass carefully, utilizing macro photography to document the exact microscopic details of the severed mesh fibers. The close-up visual evidence delivered a staggering contradiction to the narrative of an outside threat breaking into the suburban fortress. The frayed edges of the cut window screen physically pointed outward, proving conclusively that the sharp instrument pushed through the material from the inside of the garage. An external intruder cutting their way into the building would have forced those identical fibers inward toward the concrete floor. Furthermore, a thick, undisturbed layer of gray dust coated the exterior windowsill, lacking any handprints, fabric impressions, or physical disruption. If a full-grown man had squeezed through that narrow opening in the dark, he would have entirely wiped away the settled debris. A fragile spider web stretched perfectly intact across the lower corner of the exterior frame, cementing the impossibility of a human passing through that specific void. Law enforcement realized the slight screen was a carefully constructed illusion, placed there to mislead the incoming emergency responders. The phantom attacker narrative completely unraveled, leaving investigators to confront a deeply unsettling reality about the surviving mother, while crime scene technicians dismantled the physical alibi at the house. Medical personnel and detectives faced a complex challenge at the local hospital. Medical professionals treated Darlie for the severe laceration across her throat and the secondary cuts along her right arm. Investigators needed to meticulously differentiate between the catastrophic force inflicted upon the two young boys and the exact nature of the injuries sustained by their mother. Forensic pathologists noted a distinct hesitation pattern in the wound on the neck of the mother, a common characteristic found in self-inflicted injuries rather than chaotic, sudden attacks. The laceration narrowly missed her vital arteries, skimming the surface in a controlled manner that sharply contrasted with the deep, overwhelming strikes that ended the lives of Devon and Damon. Detectives seized the oversized nightshirt Darlie wore during the tragedy, submitting the garment for advanced stain pattern analysis. The fabric held the most damning microscopic truth of the entire investigation, utilizing the rigid laws of physics to reconstruct the fatal moments. Analysts examined the tiny aerosolized fluid droplets across the shoulder and chest area of the nightshirt. These specific patterns were identified as cast-off spatter, created only when a swinging weapon flings droplets backward during a downward strike. The physical presence of cast-off evidence on her own clothing meant she was actively swinging the instrument, not raising her arms in a defensive struggle against a stranger. The shirt lacked the heavy transfer smears that would indicate a frantic, close-quarters wrestling match with an armed assailant. Science effectively placed the mother in an active, aggressive posture during the exact moments her children met their devastating end. Despite the mounting forensic certainty, the complete absence of a prior criminal record and the sheer horror of the allegations forced investigators to proceed with extreme, agonizing caution. Detectives spent the following week conducting exhaustive background checks, subpoenaing bank records, and interviewing dozens of friends within the Rowlett social circles. The investigation revealed the suffocating financial desperation hidden behind the custom pool and designer clothing, establishing a stark psychological stressor. However, on June 14, 1996, exactly 8 days after the tragedy, the case shifted from a quiet forensic pursuit into a national spectacle. Local news cameras arrived at the local cemetery to cover the posthumous birthday of the youngest victim, expecting a solemn, heartbreaking memorial. Instead, journalists documented Darlie standing over the fresh, unsettled earth, displaying a jarringly festive demeanor. She chewed gum rapidly, smiling and laughing with attendees as she sprayed pressurized aerosol celebration string directly onto the grave markers. The news stations broadcast this highly disturbing footage across television networks that same evening, instantly shattering the public perception of the grieving, victimized mother. Citizens flooded the police department switchboards, expressing intense outrage and demanding immediate accountability for the bizarre, unsettling display. for the seasoned detectives. The gravesite recording provided the ultimate psychological confirmation of the deeply fractured reality they uncovered inside the Eagle Drive residence. The aerosol string video destroyed any remaining sympathetic hesitation, removing the final emotional barrier for the district attorney office to move forward. The investigative team finalized their massive compilation of microscopic evidence, preparing to execute a legal maneuver that would permanently alter the community. 75 yards away from the pristine front lawn of the Eagle Drive residence, a narrow paved alleyway cut through the quiet suburban block. During the initial frantic neighborhood canvass, a patrol officer carefully walked this specific corridor, shining a heavy flashlight into the dark corners behind the tall wooden privacy fences, resting completely out of place on the harsh concrete surface. The beam of light illuminated an ordinary white athletic sock. The fabric displayed stark dark crimson stains that immediately linked the discarded item to the devastating scene inside the Rudour home. Investigators carefully collected the garment, hoping this isolated piece of evidence might finally lead them to the phantom intruder who supposedly vanished into the humid night. The sock represented the only physical anomaly found outside the enclosed structural perimeter of the house. Forensic technicians transported the fabric directly to the state crime laboratory, utilizing advanced microscopic comparison techniques to decode the silent story woven into the threads. Analysts expected to find traces of an unknown assailant, a foreign genetic profile that could finally validate the frantic emergency dispatch call. Instead, the laboratory results delivered a shattering conclusion that entirely dismantled the remaining fragments of the home invasion narrative. The microscopic debris embedded in the cotton material perfectly matched the specific fiberglass fragments extracted from the sliced window screen in the family garage. Furthermore, the dark stains contained the exact biological profiles of both the surviving mother and her two fallen children. The rigid laws of forensic science outlined a chilling, undeniable sequence of events. The person who planted the sock in the alleyway had to have handled the torn fiberglass screen from the inside of the garage while carrying the trace evidence of the devastating attack. No external attacker would pause to meticulously stage a secondary scene outside, only to leave behind an item directly connecting back to the interior damage. The evidence proved the crime scene was intentionally and carefully manufactured to deceive law enforcement. On June 18, 1996, armed with an overwhelming mountain of physical impossibilities, investigators moved to permanently secure the community. Detectives arrived at a local residence where Darley stayed following the tragic events. Presenting the formal arrest warrant, they confronted the 26-year-old mother with the irrefutable cast-off fluid patterns on her clothing, the inward-facing fibers of the garage screen, and the heavily compromised athletic sock. The arrest sent a profound shockwave of psychological horror radiating through the affluent Texas suburb. The terrified neighbors who spent 2 weeks locking their doors against a violent roaming phantom realized the horrifying truth. The lethal threat never stalked the manicured sidewalks of Eagle Drive, nor did it bypass the heavy wooden front door in the dead of night. The danger already existed inside the secure suburban fortress, perpetrated by the exact person fundamentally meant to protect the young boys. The wheels of the criminal justice system turned rapidly, bringing the highly publicized case into a Texas courtroom in early 1997. The trial commanded national attention, drawing hundreds of spectators and journalists eager to understand how a glamorous suburban mother could orchestrate such a devastating betrayal. The prosecution executed a calculated, highly strategic legal maneuver regarding the official charges presented to the jury. They decided to try Darley solely for the capital offense involving her 5-year-old son, Damon. This rigid legal strategy intentionally withheld the charges regarding 6-year-old Devon, keeping his case as a secondary backup option in the event of an unexpected acquittal. Inside the hushed courtroom, prosecutors meticulously deconstructed the illusion of the perfect American family. They utilized expert forensic testimony to guide the jury through the unbroken tile floors, the physics of the cast-off fluid patterns, and the damning trajectory of the cut window screen. The defense attempted to argue the reality of the unknown intruder, pointing to the chaotic initial crime scene and the severe injuries sustained by the mother. However, the physical evidence stood as an immovable barrier against the claims of a fleeting nighttime phantom. The most devastating psychological blow came when the state projected the infamous television footage of the cemetery celebration onto the courtroom screens. The stark visual of the smiling, gum-chewing mother spraying aerosol string across the fresh earth entirely shattered any lingering emotional sympathy from the jury box. On February 4th, 1997, the jury delivered a definitive, unanimous guilty verdict, bringing a formal legal conclusion to the nightmare on Eagle Drive. Following the conviction, the same jury assessed the ultimate penalty, sentencing Darlie Ruier to face capital punishment. Authorities transferred her from the local county jail into the high-security confines of the Texas state prison system to await her fate on death row. The large custom house in Rowlett eventually changed ownership, forever carrying the heavy invisible scars of the tragedy that shattered the community illusion of total safety. Decades later, she remains incarcerated in a maximum security women facility, steadfastly maintaining her complete innocence to anyone who will listen. Her dedicated legal team continues to file complex appellate petitions, fighting for advanced testing and pointing toward alleged investigative missteps from the 1996 police response. Despite the continuous legal battles, the extensive forensic reality documented at the original scene remains heavily anchored in the judicial record. The legacy of this case forever altered the way law enforcement evaluates the initial emotional responses of surviving victims during major critical incidents. The bizarre, lighthearted celebration over the disturbed earth remains one of the most heavily scrutinized and debated moments in modern criminal history. It serves as a chilling reminder that the darkest, most deceptive threats often hide behind a carefully constructed mask of suburban normalcy. Sometimes, those who seek the spotlight to project their innocence end up providing the exact evidence needed for their own destruction. This relentless need for public attention directly mirrors another terrifying historical event, where a supposedly helpful school employee could not resist placing himself directly in front of the television cameras. A frantic community scours the flat fields of Cambridgeshire in search of two missing 10-year-old girls. At the same time, a local school caretaker stands before national television cameras. He stares into the camera lens. He describes his final interactions with the children. He inserts himself into the spotlight. His helpful demeanor masks something hollow. He holds the gaze of the reporters for an uncomfortable duration. Viewers at home feel a sudden chill. Veteran investigators watch the broadcast from their incident room. They notice the rigid posture. They study his forced expressions. While hundreds of volunteers march through the thick reeds, this caretaker retreats to his quiet home on the school grounds. He monitors the police presence through his front window. His desperate attempts to appear innocent will soon become the very catalyst for his downfall. Soham sits nestled in the flat fenlands of Cambridgeshire, England. The village rests under vast open skies. Brick houses line narrow roads. Neighbors know each other by name. Front doors remain unlocked during the day. A strong sense of security permeates the local streets. At the heart of this community stands Soham Village College. The large secondary school occupies an expansive campus near the center of town. Manured fields stretch behind the main buildings. A dense network of paths connects the classrooms to the surrounding residential areas. At the edge of the school grounds sits a small caretaker cottage. The brick structure provides a clear view of the pathways leading into the village. This quiet geography creates an illusion of total safety. Children ride their bicycles across the fields without a second thought. Parents let their kids wander the familiar streets. No one expects a predator to live within the protective boundaries of the school itself. 10-year-old Holly Wells and Jessica Chapman represent the very soul of this vibrant community. The two girls share an inseparable bond. They spend their weekends running through the neighborhood. Both children possess a deep love for football. They idolize the players of Manchester United. Holly has an infectious smile and a bright personality. Jessica matches her energy with a thoughtful, kind nature. Their families maintain a close friendship. The girls alternate spending time at the homes of one another. Their bedrooms feature posters of their favorite sports heroes. They plan their days around games and outdoor adventures. The parents watch them grow with immense pride. The adults envision bright futures for the two friends. The local residents recognize the duo as they walk down the streets. They navigate the world with pure innocence. The thought of malice fails to cross their minds. Ian Huntley blends into this tranquil environment without raising a single suspicion. He works as the caretaker for Soham Village College. His position grants him keys to every building on the campus. He lives in the designated cottage on the school grounds with his girlfriend, Maxine Carr. She works as a teaching assistant in the local primary school. The children recognize her from their classrooms. Huntley uses her presence to establish a facade of normal domestic life. He maintains the playing fields and sweeping pathways. He waves to the students as they walk past his front window. The village views him as a standard fixture of the school. He wears the mask of an ordinary, reliable employee. Beneath this quiet exterior lies a dark history of disturbing allegations from past towns. A rigid protocol and disjointed record systems keep his previous encounters with law enforcement hidden. Jurisdictional conflicts prevent local police from seeing his true background. The community trusts the uniform he wears. They harbor no idea about the shadow looming over their children. The date is Sunday, August 4th, 2002. The Wells family host a casual afternoon barbecue at their home on Red House Gardens. The summer air feels warm and heavy. Friends and family gather in the backyard. The scent of grilled food drips over the fences. Holly and Jessica spend the afternoon playing in the garden. They wear matching red Manchester United football shirt with the name Beckham and the number 7 printed on the back. The vibrant color contrasts with the green lawn. Laughter echoes across the patio. The girls decide they want some sweets from the local sports center. They ask for permission to take a short walk. The parents agree without hesitation. The sports center sits a short distance from the house. The route takes them through familiar streets. The two friends leave the property. They step into the late afternoon sunlight. The two friends walk down the quiet pavements of Soham. They pass row after row of familiar brick houses. The clock strikes 6:15 in the evening. The summer sun remains high in the sky. Long shadows stretch across the empty roads. The route toward the sports center requires them to pass near the edge of the Soham Village College grounds. They approach the path running parallel to the caretaker cottage. Ian Huntley stands by his front door. He watches the vibrant red shirts approach the cottage. The distance between the girls and the school boundaries shrinks with every step at the barbecue. Time passes in a blur. The parents chat with their guests. A subtle shift in the atmosphere occurs. The clock ticks past 8 in the evening. The mothers notice the prolonged absence. A prickle of unease washes over the adults. The fathers leave the house to walk the exact path toward the sports center. They expect to find the girls dawdling by the shops. The men scan the sidewalks and look down the side alleys. They reach the sports center and find the doors locked. The sweeping fields of the college sit empty in the twilight. Panic sets in as the parents knock on the doors of their neighbors. The word spreads through the community. Residents emerge from their homes to join the search. The sun dips below the horizon. The bright colors of the day give way to creeping darkness. At 9:57 in the evening, the families dial the emergency number. The operator records the descriptions of the matching red football shirts the Cambridgeshire Constabulary dispatches initial patrol cars to Red House Gardens. The officers arrive and begin taking formal statements. The peaceful illusion of the village shatters. The realization takes hold that two 10-year-old girls have vanished into the night. Morning breaks on Monday, August 5th. Helicopters hover over the flat fenlands of Cambridgeshire. The thumping rotor blades echo across the slate-grained sky. Hundreds of volunteers gather at the local community centers. They form long lines across the manicured playing fields of the college. The searchers walk shoulder to shoulder through the tall grass. They probe the thick reeds lining the drainage ditches. Police establish a massive incident room in a neighboring town. Detectives pin maps of Soham to the walls. They draw a tight red circle around the sports center and the school campus. Telephones ring without pause as tips pour in from across the nation. Officers sift through reports of suspicious vans and mistaken sightings. The sheer volume of incoming data overwhelms the local switchboards. During this chaotic mobilization, Ian Huntley stands behind his living room window. He watches the search dogs cross the fields just yards from his front door. He observes the precise movements of the search teams. Detectives run routine background checks on every school employee. The intelligence analysts type the name of Ian Huntley into the police national computer. The screen returns a blank profile. No criminal convictions appear on his record. A massive failure in the National Intelligence Network occurs at this exact moment. Years prior, residents in Humberside reported Huntley for multiple disturbing incidents involving young women. Humberside police recorded these serious allegations in their local intelligence databases. Rigid data protection laws mandated the deletion of unproven intelligence after a specific time frame. Furthermore, the computer systems of Humberside did not communicate with the databases of Cambridgeshire. A strict jurisdictional boundary acted as an impenetrable wall for the flow of critical information. The vetting process for school personnel prioritized absolute proof over behavioral red flags. The administrative blind spot allows a predator with a vast paper trail to secure a job surrounded by vulnerable children. The detectives in the incident room look at a clean file. They classify the caretaker as a helpful civilian. Investigators divide the village into strict interview grids. Two plainclothes officers walk up the concrete path to the caretaker cottage. They knock on the front door to establish a basic timeline. Ian Huntley answers the door with his girlfriend Maxine Carr standing by his side. The officers ask the couple for their exact whereabouts on the evening of August 4th. Maxine Carr speaks up with absolute certainty. She claims she spent the entire evening inside the cottage with Huntley. She provides a detailed account of their domestic activities. She describes cooking dinner and watching television together. Her status as a trusted primary school teaching assistant gives her words immense weight. The police officers record her statement in their official ledgers. They thank the couple for their cooperation and leave the property. This fabricated alibi acts as a massive roadblock for the investigation. The detectives cross the cottage off their immediate list of primary search zones. They direct their search dogs and forensic teams toward the distant fields. The deception buys the perpetrator crucial days of uninterrupted freedom. National news crews descend upon the quiet streets of Soham, broadcast vans park along the edges of the college grounds. Reporters set up their cameras near the pathways. Ian Huntley steps out of his cottage and approaches the journalists. He volunteers to give multiple television interviews. He details his final interaction with the two girls on the evening of their disappearance. He points toward the exact spot on the pavement where he claims to have seen them last. He stares into the camera lenses. He commands the attention of the entire nation. His body language remains rigid and rehearsed. He attempts to project the image of a concerned community member. He inserts himself into the epicenter of the tragedy. He relishes the control he wields over the narrative. Veteran investigators watch the evening broadcasts from their desks. They study his unblinking gaze and the strange cadence of his voice. The performance triggers an instinctual alarm in the minds of seasoned detectives. Behind the closed doors of the campus, a different reality unfolds. A large metal storage hangar sits a short distance from the caretaker cottage. The steel structure houses lawnmowers and heavy maintenance equipment for the school grounds. The interior smells of gasoline and damp earth. Huntley moves through the shadows of the hangar. He retrieves the matching red football shirts worn by the two girls. He uses a sharp tool to cut the fabric piece by piece. He places the destroyed clothing into a metal bin. He ignites the material and watches the flames consume the evidence. Smoke rises toward the corrugated metal roof. He returns to his cottage and gathers a massive supply of industrial cleaning agents. He scrubs the floors of his house with harsh chemicals. He washes his car multiple times to eliminate microscopic trace evidence. He replaces the tires on his vehicle to alter the tread patterns. He operates with calculated precision while the search teams pass by his windows. The tension begins to fracture the confidence of the caretaker. Police officers maintain a constant presence at the gates of the college. Huntley walks over to a uniformed officer stationed near the entrance. He leans against the barricade and initiates a casual conversation. He watches the forensic teams bagging debris in the distance. He turns his head and asks the officer a highly specific question. He asks how long genetic material can survive outside in the elements. He inquires if rain can wash away a biological profile. He monitors the changing expressions on the face of the policeman. The officer notes the bizarre nature of the query. He writes down the exact phrasing in his pocket notebook. The officer submits the report to the intelligence desk at the incident room. The senior detectives read the brief document. The question betrays a deep panicked understanding of forensic science. Ordinary citizens ask about the welfare of the missing children. Only a man trying to calculate his own risk of exposure asks about the degradation rate of cellular evidence. The investigative spotlight swings back toward the school campus. Detectives refuse to take the initial statements at face value any longer. They pull the mobile phone records for both Ian Huntley and Maxine Carr. The telecommunication data arrives at the incident room. The analysts trace the digital signals from the evening of August 4th. The tower pings reveal a glaring contradiction. The mobile phone of Maxine Carr did not connect to the cell towers in Cambridgeshire. Her digital footprint places her over 100 miles away in the town of Grimsby. She fabricated her presence in the cottage. The solid alibi shatters in an instant. The detectives realize the caretaker was alone on the school grounds when the girls vanished. The commanders change their strategy in total silence. They deploy covert surveillance teams to the perimeter of the college. Unmarked vehicles park in the residential streets overlooking the cottage. Plainclothes operatives monitor every movement through the front door. The unseen net closes around the predator. The dawn breaks on Saturday morning. Police vans breach the perimeter of the college. Heavy boots hit the asphalt. The distance from the main gate to the caretaker cottage measures a mere 200 yards. Tactical officers cross the green lawns. They surround the brick structure. They pound on the heavy wooden door. The lock clicks. Ian Huntley stands in the doorway. The facade drops. Detectives read him his rights. They secure his hands. The man from the television screen enters the back of a police vehicle. The search teams storm the interior of the cottage. They smell the heavy industrial bleach. The officers know the true evidence hides outside. The metal hangar sits 50 yards from the main residence. The corrugated steel structure looms in the morning light. Forensics teams, dressed in white suits, approach the heavy metal doors. They slide the heavy barriers open. The scent of gasoline and burnt plastic hits the stagnant air. Flashlights cut through the dim interior. Shelves hold dusty tools and landscaping equipment. In the far corner sits a standard metal waste bin. An investigator shines a beam into the dark cylinder. A grim realization sets in. Charred remnants of red fabric lie at the bottom. Small pieces of white lettering cling to the unburned edges. The number 7 remains visible on the ruined material. The name Beckham stands out against the dark soot. The matching football shirt rests in the ashes. The predator used heavy scissors to sever the clothing from his victims before lighting the fire. The news of the grim discovery spreads through the incident room. The community watches the police presence escalate around the campus. The horrific realization hits the residents of Soham. The man who comforted them on national broadcasts acted as the architect of their nightmare. He smiled at their children from the school windows for months. He orchestrated the massive deception from the very center of their sanctuary. Detectives interrogate Huntley inside the concrete walls of the station. His arrogant composure crumbles under the weight of the physical evidence. The charred fabric pieces serve as undeniable proof of his actions. He destroyed their clothing in the flames, but the ashes sealed his fate. The bodies of the 2 young girls are soon located in a remote woodland ditch outside the village boundaries. The flat fenlands reveal their darkest secret to the world. The community faces a grief beyond measure. The television interviews replay on evening broadcasts. The footage showcases the ultimate betrayal of public trust. The physical evidence leaves no room for his rehearsed lies. The justice system convenes in the year 2003. The courtroom at the Old Bailey in London fills with grieving families and national press. Ian Huntley sits behind the glass of the secure dock. The prosecution presents the strict forensic timeline to the court. The jury examines the charred remnants of the red football shirts. The defense offers weak deflections against the mountain of evidence. The trial exposes the profound arrogance of the caretaker to the public. The jury returns a swift and decisive verdict. The judge sentences Ian Huntley to 2 terms of life imprisonment. The legal mandate requires a minimum tariff of 40 years behind bars. Maxine Carr faces the strict consequences of her deception. The court convicts her of perverting the course of justice. Her fabricated alibi provided the predator with a crucial shield during the most critical hours. The judge sentences her to 3.5 years in prison. The hammer of justice strikes heavy against the perpetrators. The courtroom closure fails to fill the massive void left by the loss of 2 innocent children. The tragic events in Cambridgeshire force a national reckoning. Lawmakers examine the catastrophic failure of the intelligence networks. The jurisdictional blind spots receive intense governmental scrutiny. Authorities launch a massive overhaul of employment vetting procedures across the country. The new laws mandate strict cross-county background checks for all school staff. Unproven intelligence from past police encounters now surfaces during routine employment screenings. This administrative revolution aims to keep dangerous individuals away from vulnerable classrooms. The memory of the 2 friends in matching shirts remains etched into the history of the nation. The chilling television appearances stand as a permanent, terrifying lesson. Predators do not always lurk in the dark alleys of a city. They wear normal uniforms, hold standard jobs, and smile at news cameras. Some criminals hide their malice behind a facade of normal helpfulness. Others express their twisted joy without a shred of remorse or hesitation. Across the Atlantic, a sterile police interrogation room will soon host a young woman covered in physical evidence. She decides to celebrate her fatal actions with a bizarre solitary dance while the hidden cameras roll. Inside a sterile, bright police interrogation room, a young woman covered in crimson stains remains isolated by detectives. Instead of weeping or displaying shock over the violent demise of her boyfriend, she steps into the center of the floor and begins to pirouette. She hums a tune, singing the words, "I did it. Yes, I did it." To the blank walls oblivious to the hidden lenses capturing every bizarre contortion, she mutters a dark joke to herself, mocking her victim and boasting that she gave his recent cosmetic nose procedure a brand new shape with a firearm. This surreal performance transforms a standard domestics debut inquiry into an absolute psychological nightmare. The town of Highland Heights, Kentucky, sits nestled south of the Ohio River, offering a quiet, suburban refuge from the towering skyline of the neighboring city of Cincinnati. Tree-lined avenues connect quiet neighborhoods to small business districts, casting long shadows across paved driveways during the autumn months. Within this grounded community lived Ryan Poston, a 29-year-old man who possessed a boundless future and a magnetic personality. Ryan operated a thriving law practice, dedicating his days to building a steadfast reputation as an attorney who cared with his entire core for his clients. Colleagues and judges recognized his sharp intellect and his unyielding work ethic in the courtroom. Outside the halls of justice, Ryan stood as a pillar for a vast network of friends and a massive extended family who relied on his infectious warmth. He maintained a structured, disciplined routine, balancing intense legal research with active social gatherings where his laughter filled the room. Relatives described a man who elevated everyone around him, bringing a sense of security to those in his orbit. He envisioned a future filled with career milestones, a loving marriage, and children of his own. Ryan built his sanctuary inside an upscale condominium complex positioned near the center of Highland Heights. The residence featured dark hardwood floors, modern fixtures, and large glass windows overlooking a quiet parking area illuminated by harsh sodium streetlights at night. Heavy wooden doors and thick walls provided a quiet retreat from his demanding legal career. Inside this space, Ryan kept a pristine environment, organizing his files on a dark glass dining table that doubled as his home workspace. He spent countless evenings seated at this table, facing his glowing computer monitor while preparing case notes or browsing the internet. On the crisp evening of October 12, 2012, this exact space transformed into the backdrop for his final moments on Earth. Ryan believed he was stepping into a new chapter of his life, having drawn a firm line in the sand regarding a toxic romance that drained his energy. He looked forward to a scheduled date that very night with an accomplished woman, a former Miss Ohio, viewing the evening as a fresh start. The condo sat silent and secure, offering no warning of the impending nightmare about to breach its walls. The shadow cast over Ryan belonged to a 21-year-old psychology student named Shayna Hubers. Shayna entered his life as a fleeting presence, but the dynamic devolved into a volatile, suffocating cycle of emotional turmoil. Ryan attempted to distance himself from her volatile outbursts, yet Shayna exhibited a relentless, obsessive fixation that ignored every established boundary. Friends noticed a pattern where Shayna weaponized guilt and manipulation to force her way back into his condo and his daily routine. She flooded his phone with endless text messages, demanding his attention and refusing to accept his polite rejections. Despite her chosen field of psychological study, she lacked all insight into her own destructive patterns and refused to process the reality of their incompatible nature. Ryan confided in his inner circle, expressing profound exhaustion and a desperate desire to sever all ties with the young woman. He changed his routines, set firm ultimatums, and communicated his need for permanent space. Shayna viewed these reasonable requests as unacceptable insults, interpreting his desire for freedom as a personal attack requiring extreme retaliation. On the dark evening of October 12, 2012, a chilling transmission shattered the quiet routine of the local dispatch center. The emergency line connected and a female voice pierced the static, speaking with a bizarre, detached cadence. Shayna Hubers informed the operator that she had discharged a firearm, taking the life of her boyfriend inside his own home. She delivered this devastating information without a shred of panic. citing self-defense as her undeniable justification for the lethal force. Over the recorded line, she spun a chaotic narrative, claiming Ryan became a physical monster who threw her across the room like a rag doll. She stated she grabbed a handgun from the table to protect herself from imminent, brutal harm. Dispatchers kept her on the line, attempting to gather vital spatial information about the weapon and the exact state of the victim. Throughout the agonizing minutes of the call, the expected sounds of terror, weeping, or frantic attempts at life-saving measures remained absent. A chilling silence hung in the background, contrasting against her composed, calculated recitation of the events. Patrol cruisers tore through the streets of Highland Heights, their red and blue lights flashing against the exterior brick walls of the condominium complex. Officers exited their vehicles with weapons drawn, crossing the quiet asphalt of the parking lot and approaching the heavy front door of the unit. Upon breaching the threshold, the responders encountered a grim, sensory nightmare that defied the caller's initial narrative. Ryan Poston lay lifeless on the dark hardwood floor near his glass dining table, having met a brutal, permanent end from multiple gunshot wounds. The metallic scent of copper hung thick in the stagnant air of the living room. Near the devastating scene stood Shayna, wearing garments stained in dark crimson, waiting in absolute stillness for the authorities to approach. When officers commanded her to show her hands, she offered her wrists for the steel handcuffs with the compliant grace of a practiced performer. She stared at the uniformed personnel with cold, dry eyes, shedding zero tears for the man she claimed to love. The first responders secured the perimeter, unaware that this initial interaction marked the genesis of a massive, twisted legal battle that would captivate the nation. The Highland Heights police station occupies a single-story brick structure located a short distance from the crime scene. Detectives transported Shayna Hubers through a narrow cinder-block corridor and placed her inside an austere interview room. The space contained a small metal table and 2 chairs bolted to the linoleum floor. Investigators took their seats across from the 21-year-old woman, opening their notepads with the expectation of interviewing a traumatized survivor. Standard protocol dictated a delicate approach for individuals claiming self-defense following a lethal encounter. The detectives asked foundational questions about the events leading up to the fatal moment. Instead of providing a coherent timeline, Shayna launched into a bizarre narcissistic monologue. She bypassed the grim reality of the evening and began detailing her academic achievements and her future career aspirations in psychology. Her tone remained conversational, devoid of the heavy grief expected from someone who just lost a partner. She spoke at length about her desire to find a suitable husband, casually dismissing the man lying lifeless on his hardwood floor. When asked directly about the physical altercation, her story shifted wildly, offering vague descriptions of being pushed. She peppered her responses with inappropriate laughter and bizarre jokes regarding her legal representation. The seasoned investigators exchanged quiet glances, realizing the narrative presented by the young woman failed to match the gravity of the situation. They excused themselves from the room, stepping into the adjacent observation space to evaluate her statements. The observation room sat in heavy darkness, save for the glow of the closed-circuit television monitors displaying the interior of the interview space. Detectives watched the screen, anticipating that the suspect would break down once the pressure of the direct questioning lifted. Shayna sat alone, yet the hidden lenses captured a psychological horror story unfolding in real time. She stood up from her bolted chair and walked into the center of the sterile room. Without a shred of hesitation, she raised her arms and began to execute a series of methodical pirouettes across the linoleum tiles. She twirled her body, humming a cheerful melody that echoed through the audio feed. She sang the chilling phrase, "I did it. Yes, I did it," transforming the police station into a Mabrib theater stage. She paced the floor, engaging in a one-sided conversation with the blank walls. She began to stretch her limbs, contorting her body in strange, deliberate movements as if preparing for an athletic event. In a moment of pure darkness, she muttered a twisted joke about Ryan and his recent cosmetic nose procedure. She bossed it to the empty room that she gave him a brand new facial profile using the firearm. The detectives behind the glass stood in stunned silence, documenting every chilling word and unhinged movement. This surreal performance confirmed their deepest suspicions regarding her absolute lack of remorse. The investigation pivoted, shifting from a tragic self-defense inquiry to a calculated investigation of an intentional act. While the bizarre theater played out at the precinct, crime scene technicians descended upon the upscale condominium. The spatial layout of the residence provided the first crucial pieces of silent testimony. The front door opened directly into a modern living space, anchored by the dark glass dining table positioned near a set of large windows. Technicians established a grid meticulously photographing the position of the deceased and the surrounding environment. Protocol required investigators to search for physical signs of a violent struggle to corroborate the claims of a brutal physical assault. They inspected the heavy wooden furniture, the fragile decorative items on the shelves, and the alignment of the area rugs. The environment remained pristine, offering zero evidence of thrown bodies or chaotic grappling. Chairs stood upright in their designated spots, and loose papers rested undisturbed on the glass surface. The technicians turned their focus to mapping the dark crimson stains scattered across the hardwood floor and the adjacent walls. They utilized string lines and laser levels to trace the exact trajectory paths of the discharged projectiles. Every impact point received a numbered yellow marker, creating a connect the dots map of the fatal sequence. The physical markers painted a spatial reality that contradicted the wild narrative spun by the young woman. The silent condo held the undeniable truth of the encounter, waiting for the forensic experts to translate the physical data into a definitive timeline. Detectives recognized they needed to dismantle the core of her defense theory regarding a long history of severe abuse. They initiated a sweeping background investigation, branching out into the community to interview friends, family members, and neighboring residents. The law enforcement system demands strict verification of all claims, forcing investigators to chase down this potential dead end to ensure a flawless case. They pulled municipal dispatch records searching for prior emergency calls originating from the condominium or involving the couple. They requested medical documents to find a trace of prior injuries or hospital visits that might support the narrative of a violent partner. For days, detectives knocked on doors and conducted sit-down interviews with those who knew Ryan Poston intimately. The results yielded a massive void of evidence regarding any abusive behavior on his part. Instead, witness after witness detailed an inverted dynamic, pointing to Shaina as the sole source of aggression and relentless harassment. Associates described Ryan as a patient man attempting to navigate a safe exit from a toxic situation. The lack of corroborating police reports or witness testimony severed the lifeline of her self-defense strategy. The defense theory crumbled into a factual dead end, leaving her initial emergency call exposed as a calculated fabrication. The detectives gathered these negative findings, building an impenetrable wall against future claims of battered woman syndrome. The documentation of this false narrative became a vital weapon for the upcoming legal battle. The final pieces of the puzzle arrived inside the stark white confines of the Regional Crime Laboratory. Forensic-abled ballistics experts examined the recovered shell casings and matched them against the physical trajectory lines mapped inside the living room. The scientist reconstructed the exact positioning of both individuals at the moment the firearm discharged its first round. The angle of the impacts and the specific pattern of the crimson evidence on the glass table delivered a devastating revelation. Ryan Poston did not charge across the room, nor did he stand in an aggressive posture towering over his attacker. The spatial geometry proved with absolute certainty that Ryan remained seated in his designated desk chair. He faced his glowing computer monitor, engaged in a mundane task, unaware of the lethal threat standing directly beside him. The first strike caught him from a downward angle, indicating the shooter stood over him while he remained defenseless. Subsequent trajectory lines showed the weapon continued to discharge as the victim fell from the chair onto the hardwood floor. This precise forensic timeline obliterated the remaining fragments of the fabricated altercation story. The scientific data harmonized with the chilling behavior captured on the precinct cameras. Detectives finalized their massive binder of evidence, merging the irrefutable physical facts with the undeniable psychological horrors documented on tape. The investigation reached its zenith, proving a calculated predator extinguished a bright life because she could not accept the word no. The Campbell County Courthouse stands as a rigid stone structure dominating the local skyline. Inside the building, the main courtroom features polished wooden benches, harsh fluorescent overhead lighting, and a distinct physical separation between the public gallery and the trial. Well, heavy oak partitions divide the grieving family members from the adversarial legal teams. Ryan Poston's relatives occupy the front row, sitting in agonizing proximity to the individual who stole his future. Shayna Huber sits at the defense table, wearing modest conservative attire to project an aura of total innocence. She attempts to present herself as a fragile survivor of unimaginable terror. The prosecutors step up to the wooden podium positioned in the center of the expansive room. They face the jury box located along the right wall. The legal battle commences with the defense pushing the fabricated narrative of a desperate, abused partner. The jury listens to the carefully crafted tales of domestic terror. The atmosphere inside the room grows thick with anticipation. The physical space feels suffocating as the competing narratives clash. The prosecutors remain composed, holding their most devastating evidence in reserve. The trial reaches a boiling point the moment of absolute truth arrives. The state prepares to dismantle the facade of the defendant. Prosecutors direct the attention of the jury to the large digital monitors positioned across the courtroom. The overhead lights dim. The screens flicker to life, displaying the sterile confines of the police interrogation room. The jurors lean forward in their rigid wooden chairs. They expect to witness a weeping, traumatized victim. The audio feed crackles through the courtroom speakers. A young woman steps into the center of the digital frame. She raises her arms. She begins to peer away. The courtroom falls into an absolute suffocating silence. The defendant on the screen twirls across the linoleum floor. She sings her twisted, cheerful melody to the empty walls. I did it. Yes, I did it. The words echo off the high ceilings of the courthouse. The chilling song shatters the fabricated defense. The jury watches a predator masquerading as a victim. The presentation of the video evidence escalates the psychological horror for everyone present. The tape continues to roll. The young woman on the screen stretches her limbs. She mutters the dark joke about Ryan and his recent cosmetic nose procedure. She boasts about rearranging his facial features with a projectile. Jurors visibly recoil in their seats. The spatial disconnect between the quiet, solemn courtroom and the unhinged digital performance creates a visceral shock. The physical evidence presented earlier locks into place with this undeniable psychological profile. The forensic trajectory lines proved Ryan sat defenseless at his desk. The video proves the shooter felt zero remorse for the lethal ambush. The defense attorneys sit motionless, unable to counter the raw reality of the recorded behavior. The carefully constructed facade of the battered woman vanishes. In its place stands an arrogant, calculated individual who executed her partner for daring to walk away. The predator hid in plain sight. The undeniable truth demands an immediate reckoning. The jury retreats to the deliberation room to process the mountain of undeniable evidence. They return with a definitive verdict of guilt. bringing an overwhelming sense of relief to the grieving family. However, the pursuit of justice encounters an infuriating systemic roadblock. A rigid administrative protocol uncovers a massive legal loophole regarding the jury selection process. One of the empaneled jurors possessed a prior felony conviction on their permanent record. State law strictly prohibits individuals with felony convictions from serving on a jury panel. This obscure oversight occurs due to a failure in the background check procedures during the initial selection phase. The judge possesses no alternative option under the rigid statutes. The court declares a complete mistrial. The initial guilty verdict evaporates into the legal ether. The devastation washes over Ryan Poston's loved ones. They realize they must endure the agonizing ordeal of a second trial. The system forces the victims to relive the trauma from the very beginning. The bureaucratic failure grants the perpetrator a temporary reprieve. The wheels of justice grind forward, demanding a repeat of the massive legal undertaking. In the year 2018, prosecutors dragged the defendant back into the Campbell County Courthouse for the second trial. The spatial layout remains identical, yet the emotional toll on the family feels infinitely heavier. The defense attempts new strategies to suppress the devastating interrogation footage. The presiding judge denies these motions, ensuring the jury views the unhinged piratuettes and the remorseless confessions. The second panel of jurors absorbs the forensic geometry of the dark crimson stains and the precise trajectory lines. They watch the young woman boast about the fatal encounter on the glowing monitors. The mountain of evidence remains an impenetrable fortress of truth. The new jury reaches the exact same conclusion as their predecessors. The courtroom holds its collective breath as the foreman reads the final decision. The system finally delivers a permanent verdict of guilt. The arrogant facade of the perpetrator crumbles under the weight of undeniable accountability. The second trial secures the conviction without any procedural flaws. The judge strikes the wooden gavel, handing down a resolute punishment for the horrific actions. Shayna Hubers receives a sentence of life in prison, carrying the possibility of parole after serving a massive portion of her time. The harsh reality of a concrete cell replaces her twisted dreams of a future built on deception. Ryan Poston leaves behind a legacy of immense warmth, sharp intellect, and unwavering dedication to his community. His family channels their grief into honoring the magnetic man who elevated everyone around him. The criminal justice system ultimately functions as designed, tearing away the mask of an ordinary student to reveal the monster underneath. Law enforcement academies across the nation utilize the bizarre interrogation tape as a premier example of psychological deception. The chilling footage cements its place in history as one of the most unsettling displays of guilt ever recorded on hidden lenses. The nightmare inside the Highland Heights condominium reaches a definitive conclusion, closing the chapter on a bright life extinguished too soon. Yet, the shadows hide other predators masquerading as normal members of society, waiting for the perfect moment to strike their unsuspecting targets. Forensic science secures the final conviction, but it is a predator's failed mask of normalcy that first alerts investigators to the darkness. This leaves us with a chilling question: how well do we truly know those around us? Thank you for watching. Click the video on your screen to continue exploring the deep mysteries of true crime.